trying to draw stories from a community, and then another one we'll do design for a theatre in the city on a show. So really it's the style of our work that seems to fit all sorts of different genres, but somehow there's always that Shadowland style.
In our work with Carnival, there's a something that's called the Mass Camp, and it's the masquerade camp, and it's the camp where everybody comes and to be creative together. It's like a sewing bee or a barn raising or something. And so there's aspects of what we do that's very grassroots, but our strategy for survival is to have everything pretty much figured out, but leave lots of holes, so that if we're going to do a play, we have the play scripted, but there's lots of places for anybody of any talent level, whatever, to plug in. And we understand what it is we're going to build, based on how difficult it is. For instance, paper macheing, anybody can take clay or whatever and sculpt a head, and anybody can paper mache. But we sort of control the idea and leave it very porous.
We're very much bound to the place that we belong. And we do a lot of shows with the island community, but we also take ourselves to other communities and work with them. And I think the idea is always to go in really open to what is being presented to you, not necessarily to go in searching for something that will fulfill your idea of what you think they need, but to go in really open-eyed and open-eared and listen and look and learn from that community, hear what their stories are and what the ways of that community, rather than go and try and stamp on your particular style of theatre on them. Having said that, our particular style of theatre, I think it has a very inclusive nature. So we can make things for all sorts of skill levels. So it's very important that you have some things that the odd artist of the community maybe can come and help you with, because that's somebody who's very skilled, or there's a great sewer or something like that. But then you have the other end, who's somebody who just wants to hang around, but what can they do? Well, they can undercoat things, they can papier-mâché, they can, just help on a very basic level, but they're still there and part of the whole thing. And then people will bring food, and some people will just be the liaison and go and get other people to join in. I think what we try and do is use techniques that make people connect with each other. And I remember one instance when we were working for the Ashkenaz Festival of New Yiddish Culture, and we were creating crazy cardboard hats for people to wear in this parade, which was going from Kensington Market, the heart of the first Jewish community in Toronto, all the way down to Harbourfront Centre, down Spadina in a big parade. So we had to think of images that would be created that would make impact on the street. So we made these really crazy hats, again, out of cardboard, because this is the low-tech thing. It's available. We were based next door to a supermarket. We could go and get cardboard out of their dumpster every day. It's cheap, available, and very flexible to use.
And environmentally friendly. It's reusing materials, which is,
Yeah. So here you have this room with these old women who've come to help us. They've heard through the grapevine that we want help. And so they're painting on these delicatessen hats. We're saying, okay, we've got all these hats. All they need to be is decorated, paint on. And through that, they're telling stories to each other about Kensington and whose uncle, aunt, father, son, nephew owned this store or that store. There's Data's Creamery and Silverman's, dry goods store or whatever. And they start talking to each other as if they're old friends. And it's all because they're painting a piece of silly cardboard. We always work in a very visual way, because a lot of the time you can actually have images that resonate with people in a different way to the way words do. And a lot of our puppetry is non-verbal. So shadow puppets, for instance, are generally accompanied by a musical narrative rather than a spoken narrative, or they're not voiced. And a lot of our giant puppets out in the street don't have voices. A lot of our full head masks, you can't speak, you can only use gesture. So in a way, the visual vocabulary is accessible to a wider number of people, and they tend to take from it more of what they think. They have to actually participate a bit in the interpretation, because they're not being told verbally what something means. And that's another important aspect, is to give them a visual image that kind of resonates with them. Sometimes is a bit ambiguous or has many layers, but they have to figure out what those layers are.
The puppet isn't nearly as versatile as a performer, but it's a very specific idea, and it can be very moving. Our work with Video Cabaret over the years has always been to take the character, or one of the aspects of it is to take the characters from Canadian history and simplify them down into caricatures. I mean, I like doing a lot of cartooning, and my design aesthetic is to take these complicated ideas, mix them together, and simplify them. And puppetry and mask work appeals to me because, by their nature, masks and puppetry are simplification.
People obviously tend to think of puppetry as a children's thing, which we challenge constantly, but I have had some of the most incredible experiences working with younger people and puppetry or mask, where they have been completely transformed by the freedom that they are given when they can express themselves through an inanimate object that they're bringing to life. And I've had teachers say to me, that child has never spoken, and you've given her a puppet, and suddenly she's found a voice. A kid with a mask who is a new immigrant, can't speak English, doesn't know what to do, but you put him in a mask and say, you don't have to speak, you just have to gesture. Suddenly he's the mayor of the town and he's ordering everyone around. So the tiny little Vietnamese boy has doubled in stature. And I think those moments are hugely magical. And it's another kind of storytelling, really. It all goes back to storytelling, and that's fundamental to what everything is. You have to have the story there. And then we find coming up with the techniques to tell that story fairly straightforward. Sometimes they're bound with the landscape. You know, there are certain things you can do at certain times of day because of the light conditions, or you're going on a particular journey and you need something to fill a space between one location and another.
And there are, in fact, a number of Shadowland babies out there, like the ARs, the drumming group, was started within the Shadowland thing, and now it's the Caravana group is still going. But, Shadowland itself, we still embrace it and support it, but we don't lead it. Little splinter groups have broken off, and now they're doing it. And it's the same with the stilting, and in Kathleen's Fire Parade, all these things started in Shadowland, and became big enough and strong enough and important enough that the community and the Toronto community has embraced it and wants it to continue to happen. So it's really quite a wonderful feeling when you get that hit back from people and you realize, wow, there's little success stories all over the place. The amazing thing about Anne's Monday night theater school is that, in recognizing that there are no shopping malls and there are no places for kids to hang out, creating a structure so that kids can hang out, learn theater skills, which is a huge confidence building skill, walking on stilts, being in our performances. It's amazing. And a lot of the people that we work with today that help run some of our theater stuff are kids or people we started working with as teenagers. And so there is kind of a through line that people are taking this up. There's also a lot of kids that can make pocket money by stilting at parties or events. And so it's actually I would say the most exciting part about the theater work we do is that the kids and the community have embraced it and see the value of it.
We encourage people to be in a parade, not watching a parade, because there is nothing like going on that journey and feeling that you've done something incredible by walking a long distance carrying some kind of placard or wearing a goofy hat or costume, or
a sewing machine hat made out of cardboard,
or a pickle hat, or
a
chicken hat, or whatever in that instance. So we try and find techniques that really have people get physically involved. And in our shows, a lot of them, not only the parades in the streets, but in our outdoor island shows, the audience are also asked to move from location to location. So they are never isolated in a dark theater staring straight ahead, not knowing the person who's sitting next to them, or maybe knowing one of them. But they have to keep moving from place to place, and so they'll end up in one location sitting next to one group of people, and in another will be sitting next to a different group of people, and in the little parades in between they'll be talking to complete strangers, or they'll be taking in the landscape, but they're actually physically involved in the journey of the theatre production. So all those things, I think, are very raw and very visceral and non-technological, and people have to do it as a communal act. And I think we really see theatre as a communal act for the creators and for the audience, that there's somehow, we create a relationship and a conversation between the two, and the audience often feel that they're really involved in the show in some way.